My first question actually is that you've started all this great journey in 2004, and maybe could you share with me what are the secrets, like 3 major secrets of your success as a global company? Because you have a lot of global partners, and the trainings were translated into different languages, and this is really cool. I'm looking at this and I'm saying, like, wow, I want to be this man. in this case. So,
well, I mean,
maybe
for us it was a little bit of good luck, as well as, like anything, they say the harder you work, the luckier you get. So that's the other element of it as well. But I mean, we ran our business for about maybe 7 years, and sort of ran it as a little consulting business. And what we found, especially those first 7 years, is that the desire for storytelling services wasn't very large in Australia, right? And we would grow our little business and add people, and then we'd have to shrink it. And we did that. We did that a number of times because the business just wasn't there. And we had 2 lucky coincidences. One was a gentleman called Ken Everett met with us. He'd come along to one of our training courses, and he told us that, oh, you guys have got a great training course here. Why don't you license this to other people? And we'd never really even considered it before that. And so we sort of started going down that path and trying to work that out. And then at the same time, another gentleman, Paul Honeywell, who's now our chairman of the company, said something very similar. So we had those two little bits of help, and that really changed our business around. And it just happened to also coincide with an increased interest in storytelling around the world. And because we had a global footprint, we could do large global projects.
Great.
Yeah.
That's this phrase, the harder you work, the luckier you get. It's great. Since you have all those partnerships around the world, I mean, the training goes in French, in German, and in other countries. I was wondering, I saw on the site that you don't have any partnerships in Russia. Is it due to that? Is it? Do you?
No, we don't. We don't have a partnership in Russia.
So I was wondering, is it due to that this whole market wasn't under your attention before, or are there any reasons behind this, or this is just a way you didn't go?
Yeah, it wasn't a conscious decision, because we just didn't know anyone in Russia, I suppose, was the main thing. And it wasn't one of our identified target markets for us. But that's, I mean, the way our network has grown is from people approaching us and convincing us that they would make a good partner. So that's how our global market has grown.
Okay, so maybe one day I'll grow enough to convince you that Russia is ready for the Anecdote.
The hardest thing in becoming a good partner for us is having the network of large corporations that have got the budget and the desire to build this leadership or sales capability. You can be like, we've had partners in the early days that we brought on who didn't have that network, and as a result, they really struggled. Whereas those who do have that sort of network, that's where they've done particularly well. So, for example, our partner in India, has got a really thriving storytelling business because, he put a lot of effort in building, it took him probably a couple of years of really hard work in trying to build up his awareness, if you like, among the corporate leaders of India. And now he's highly regarded. He's just even published a book of his own about storytelling.
Wow.
And so it's possible. It just requires quite a bit of effort. Artem, what's your background? Like, tell me a little bit about what you've been.
Yeah, of course. I'm actually just a trainer. I've been doing the training for 6 or 7 years now.
Yeah.
And recently I found out storytelling like 2 years ago, and I'm now working on several projects to create something as a movement. Like I don't like to call it a company because it's not a company in a regular way. It's more than it's not like a movement of people with similar ideology. And so I'm currently working at Société Générale, a bank that is a part of this group in Russia, and trying to perform my own projects. But it goes a bit slow, I guess. But 2019 is the first year I'm actually performing some projects of my own. So I've started pretty good, because now I have a small course for entrepreneurs, and I'm doing a distance course, and I'm actually that's a kind of a secret, but I've recently contacted Kat Koppett. I guess you know something about her. She's also doing storytelling and improv. Have you heard of her?
So what's the name again? Sorry.
Kat Koppett. It's she has a consulting group, Koppett.com. Well, it doesn't actually matter at this point.
Is she in Silicon Valley?
Yeah.
I met her just probably 6 weeks ago.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, I actually did a short interview with her prior to yours one, and today I'm going to post the most valuable insights, and we're actually going to do some more projects together on the basis of improv and storytelling. So it goes a bit slow, but it is going. But
that's good.
Great. My main concern is that in Russia you don't have a culture for storytelling, because I guess I'm the only storyteller in Russia that regards storytelling as a vehicle agnostic tool, not for public speech, not for only leadership, not for only sales. It's for communication, for everything. And it's just yet it's a novice. It's something new. So I'm working on it. I'll keep you posted anyway. So, Shawn, thank you for sharing the secrets of your success. But I have several more questions. In your book, you write about the 4 internal themes like death, sex, children, and power. Yeah. And I actually like this very much because it has a lot to do with psychology and our basic instincts. Maybe you could share with me, how do I match a business story with those topics? Like, for example, I know that a death is like a story where some of your enemies or rivals, like different companies, are going out in the market and they're being more successful, and you are facing bankruptcy. This is a recall of death.
No. That's not it.
Oh, no?
No.
Okay, so could you share?
When I'm talking about death, I'm actually talking about humans dying.
Oh, okay.
And it's not metaphorical or anything like that. One thing it's useful to know is that a lot of people in the storytelling business have been, I think, over-influenced by Hollywood storytelling, right? And they're totally obsessed with the hero's journey, and they they want to use all the techniques of screenwriters. Well, I can tell you, when I started Anecdote, but before I did that, I worked at IBM, and my job was to go into organizations and using sort of ethnographic and anthropological techniques, collect stories that people actually tell in organizations and then use those as the basis of culture change programs. And guess what? They didn't tell those Hollywood stories. They told small stories, right? Tiny stories. And that's why we called our company Anecdote. We didn't call it, amazing storytelling business or the hero's journey or anything like that. It's the small stories. So when I talk about death, I'm doing a project for a big insurance company at the moment. And they have lots of stories of people dying. They're customers, right? Now, if you're a leader in an insurance company and someone says to that leader, so why do you care about the insurance business? Like, why is this important to you? You could reply with a little story by saying, that has to be true, right? I'm not saying to make this up. But I know a CEO told me this, and he said that one night he got a phone call like 2 a.m, and it was from an old customer of his he's had for years, when he sort of started out in the insurance business. And this customer was standing in front of his factory, and his factory was burning down in front of him. He was crying over the telephone as he was telling the CEO this. And the CEO had to tell him, look, it's okay. Look, we've got you totally covered with insurance. You will in fact be in a better position after the fire than you were before the fire, because of the way we've set things up. And then when he finished telling me the story, he turned to me and he said, Shawn, that's why I'm in the insurance business. Right? And now so that's one way of describing why you're in the insurance business, right? But it's to do with destruction. It's to do with potentially, danger. Yeah. It's not quite death, but it's very close to it. Whereas the other way of saying that is you could sort of say, well, I'm in the insurance industry to really protect people's property from destruction and from really having a detrimental impact to their bottom line over time and into the future. Of course, the second one doesn't use storytelling at all, and it doesn't have an impact on you. So that's what I mean by death. We're just hardwired to care about people's lives, especially when they're under threat, because we don't want to suffer those things ourselves. That's why we want to know about those stories.
Oh, so basically you're saying that all those stories that you collect they may have those 4 themes in the background, but they are not metaphorical. So if I want to use them, I just tell a story of a near-death experience or an experience with a child or something like this. So I don't need to go metaphorical. It still has power.
Oh, that's right. Exactly. It's not metaphorical. It's all I was trying to get across in the book there of those 4 themes is that for some reason, from an evolutionary reason, humans are drawn to those 4 topics. Right?
Okay.
And so if you have a choice of a story to tell, and you've got on one hand a story about, a very powerful person that helps someone avoid death, versus a story of someone who, crafts a new product by using some new products and new materials, I can tell you that people will be more interested in your death and power story.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you. So,
if you can combine those things, that's even better. Now, the thing is, it's really about, you want to be collecting stories. Like I heard a story today, which is a tiny story. It was quite a nice story, right? This senior executive, he's head of communications of a large organization. They're right in the middle of they do disaster relief. They're a non-profit that does disaster relief. There's a big disaster happening in Indonesia, and she had to send out a quick email, and she thought she was sending it out to her direct colleagues, but she sent the email to everyone in the organization, and it was written very informally, maybe slightly unprofessionally, right? And she sent it to the entire, and she's head of communications. She said she was, just utterly embarrassed that she did that. And quickly sent an email in, to follow it up, to apologise and to tell people to retract it, etc. But the next day she had to give a speech to about 300 employees. And she started by telling that story because she said, hey guys, we all make mistakes and you can't be worried about your mistakes. And she used it as a whole theme around innovation, but she took it from her own personal mistake that she started off with. It was a lovely little way of kicking a presentation off. Now, it doesn't have death in it or any other themes, but it's still a heartfelt and authentic story.
So basically what I'm hearing right now is that you don't have to go deep to find those, meaningful lessons like stuff that changed your life, but because Anecdote is more like a small story that connects to people and is authentic. Am I right?
Yeah, that's right. And it has to be able to illustrate a point. I think that's the most important thing. You don't want to, in business, you don't want to just tell a story because you want to tell a story.
Yeah.
You're doing it for some purpose.
Okay, so do you think that those big stories, like, hero's journey and the different structures that are used in marketing and sales and leadership, do they have to be omitted? Or, well, let me pose it this way. When would you use anecdote over a bigger story and vice versa? Are there any criteria for you?
Well, I would never use the hero's journey, so that's probably one thing.
Yeah.
And this is, by the way, this is one of my differentiators. I go into organisations and say, if anyone's trying to sell you a hero's journey, you want to run the other way. And you can see their relief on their faces when I say that, because they find people who deal with the hero's journey a little bit non-business-like, I suppose, right? They seem a bit too creative for them. So that's one point. But the most structured story that we use is described in the book as the clarity story, and it's used primarily for those overarching stories in an organization. So for example, the story that explains a strategy, or a story that explains a major change that's going on, that's useful for those. That's for those bigger stories that's got more structure to it. You would potentially use it for those sort of larger overarching stories that you want to tell in an organization.
Okay, Shawn, so thank you. So basically, if I got you wrong, if I got you right, I mean, the structure of a story still stays intact. So you just don't use those classic things like setup, a hero, teacher, a loss, a win, and stuff. So the minimum amount, if I'm getting you right, is using a story and giving a point. It doesn't have to contain all those complex.
Yeah, I mean, our story spotting framework is the minimum sort of information you need for a story to be a story. So, it starts with a time marker or a place marker. It's made of events, and something unanticipated happens. That's kind of like the minimal view of storytelling.
So once again, I got low connection in here. So
yeah.
I got the when an unexpected point and the two things before it. Could you please repeat?
Now I'm using a word here very specifically. I'm not saying unexpected.
Yeah.
I'm saying unanticipated.
Unanticipated. Yeah. I
And
heard
the
that.
reason why I'm using unanticipated is it's even smaller than unexpected. Do you know what I'm saying?
Oh.
Right?
Yeah.
Unanticipated just means like you vaguely raise your eyebrows when something's unanticipated. When something's unexpected, you might open your mouth and go, "Oh my God," like that was unexpected.
Oh, okay. That's a great differentiation. That means a lot of sense.
So that's how small a story can be, I suppose. And the reason why I use that, I don't want to call it a definition per se, but I use that.
Yeah, I know.
That I just call it heuristic to help you spot stories. And I use that one because sometimes people say to me, "Oh, a story is only a story if you have a hero facing a challenge and who overcomes a challenge." Right? And I can think of examples that don't have that. And probably the easiest example is a coincidence story. Right?
Yeah.
Right. So I was walking down a street in Moscow, and I just bumped into Artem. I mean, we'd only met once on Zoom, and we just happened to bump into each other, and it was Artem. There's no hero.
Yeah.
There's no challenge. But it is unanticipated, right?
Yeah.
And people kind of like coincidence stories. So that's why I'm not tied up with that sort of very narrow understanding of story, I suppose.
Okay. Great. Actually, that's good. That really clears it up for me, because I have reached the coincidence stories in your book, but
Yes.
The whole explanation with unanticipated is really something new. Thank you.
Cool.
Shawn, there are a couple more questions, just 2 or 3 of them. We pretty much covered it all up, but I have 3 questions that I ask all storytellers. And the first one is, at the beginning, how did you persuade the CEOs and the companies and the top managers to use stories if they were unwilling to? Do you have maybe any story about this, or any fact or a figure that you can share?
Well, not really, because I don't do that. That's
okay.
If the CEO or the senior leader doesn't believe in storytelling, I just say, that's too bad. I'm going to someone else who does.
Oh, so are there any reasons for that you could share?
Well, it takes a long time to convince people of a changing mind, and that's not my job. I mean, it's so that's my sort of tongue-in-cheek. Let me see. I'll tell you how I really do it. Right. So that's one answer.
Okay.
I'll give you another answer. So a couple of years ago, I was doing a big strategy story project for an insurance company. And one of the senior executives was a non-believer in story, right? And to the point where he wouldn't even turn up to meetings where we asked him to turn up to. But eventually I got him into a session with his direct reports. So his direct reports came along. I ran a little workshop, and all my workshops are very hands-on. You're a trainer, you know what it's like. You want to get them doing things as quickly as possible. Well, he walked into the room and he sat up the front right next to me, and he had his arms crossed. He pushed his seat back, and he was just sitting there like, prove it to me. That was the attitude.
Oh my God.
And so I started my session, and he started to notice that his people were getting very into the exercises, and they were sharing stories back and forwards to each other, and something must have clicked for him, because next thing you know, he was participating and sharing stories. Anyway, it was only an hour and a half session, and I got them all to fill in a feedback form. And he wrote on the bottom of the feedback form, he said, "Shawn, I started skeptical, but now I'm a true believer."
Oh my God, this is great.
Right.
So you do actually persuade them.
Yes. And so, yeah, I guess what I'm saying is that the best way to persuade people, I think, is to get them doing things, not to argue with them, not to, it's to actually somehow get them involved and show them the power of storytelling. And not, I try to avoid using the word story. I think people find that, especially in big business, they find that a little bit off-putting, the word story. So,
what word do you use instead?
Well, I especially if I'm talking to very number, focused or scientific or analytical people, I say to them, I might ask a question. So, guys, how important is sharing your experience? And they nearly always will say, "Oh, sharing experience, that's vitally important. That's how you learn around here. It's through experience." I said, "Okay, well, we're going to just share some experiences. Guys," and then I'll set up, "Tell me about a time when a small thing made a big difference at your work." And away they go. You still there, Artem?
Yeah, I'm still there. It's just that the music is quite loud, and I just turned it up for a sec.
That's okay. I thought so.
I'm here.
Yeah, no. Anyway, so if I had to, I was kind of in a situation with that executive where, I had to get him on board because he was part of the project. But if I was to go cold into an organization, I think it'd be very hard to just convince someone to become interested in storytelling. I think what we're seeing is so many senior business leaders now are total advocates of this approach. And what I would do is I would drip feed little things about, like Jeff Bezos doing his 6-page narrative memo as the way he sets up senior leadership team meetings. And I would just share that with senior leaders and say, "Oh, you might find this interesting," and just drip feed them what senior leaders are doing in the story world and what different companies are doing. And say, "Oh, Apple, they have a really interesting story embedding process. Thought you might be interested. Oh, Amazon's doing this. Oh, Google's doing that." And, and eventually they'll be going, "I need to know more about this. Artem, come in and tell me, how does this work?" You want them to pull you in. You don't want to push at them, right?
Wow. That's actually something I heard a lot about, because Paul Smith told me quite the same thing. He said that he doesn't work on an outgoing sales. He just confirms ingoing. All those who already believe, he teaches them instead of selling it to those who don't believe yet. So, okay, so I was anticipating this answer actually. I was prepared for this. So maybe you could tell me an advice or some kind of secret, I don't know, of how do you engage with the community to help them believe in the power of story? Because I hear in your stories and the thing you tell that all those people in India and in Australia, they come to the idea that stories are meaningful. So what do you use to move them there to this place?
Well, I think probably the important thing is not to focus so much on story, but to focus on business needs that story techniques can help with. So you might pick something like employee engagement. There's a lot of people already working on employee engagement, right?
Yeah.
But one of the things, if you look in those employee engagement surveys and the results that they get, nearly the one that always bubbles to the surface is poor communication by the leaders.
Yeah.
Right.
That's true.
So if you sort of said, you organised a workshop, a public workshop, just for an hour and a half in the morning or something like that, and said, a narrative approach to employee engagement, and develop that.
Oh.
Right. And then all those people are already thinking about employee engagement go, oh, I hadn't even thought about a narrative approach to employee engagement. And they come along and they learn about your approach, and now you've got people to talk to. Now you've got people to potentially do projects with, etc. Or you pick another, you pick just different business issues that organisations are facing, and they've already have a bit of a language for it. So the thing, one of the big lessons I think too is, if you're too different, people will exclude you, right?
Yeah.
You have to be similar enough to be safe, but different enough to be interesting, right? And so
that's great. I'll just write this down.
Yeah, it's not a new idea. I stole it from someone. I'm just trying to remember the guy's name. A very famous designer, essentially, has this concept. And
so how does it go again? Similar enough to be
similar enough to be safe, but different enough to be interesting. Yeah. So the similar enough is employee engagement, right? So, when they hear employee engagement, everyone's quite comfortable. They go, oh, yeah, we know that. And, we know that. And then you go narrative and you go, oh my God, that's different. So, oh, that's a bit intriguing, but it's sort of couched in a safe way.
Whoa, that's something new. Thank you.
And I think if you can do that and find those connections, that'll be more palatable than just sort of pushing storytelling, as the thing.
Yeah, great. That's really it for me. I will try doing this. Thank you so much.
Yeah, pleasure.
Shawn, so one final question for you, and I know I haven't read the book till the end, so maybe there is an answer that I will find there. But imagine a situation when you come to an organization where a leader invited you in, and he says that storytelling is the thing that we need, and you start teaching, and the people are just afraid. They are they are ready, but they're afraid of sharing stories. So are there any methods you use to make them safe in this environment to share those stories?
Yeah, look, I think what I tend to do is get them sharing in very small groups. Like they'll start off in pairs, and I'll just get them. I'll first of all show them how easy it is. I don't use the word story so much at the beginning. I'll just sort of say, okay, turn to your partner and share a moment where you felt you made a difference at work. And right, and they can all do it, right? And they will share a story.
Yeah.
And then I sort of say to them, so what happened there? What did it feel like? What did you see? What did you notice? And then they work out that they can do it very easily, right? So all that fear that's associated with, oh, I don't know if I can do this storytelling thing, evaporates. And in addition to that, in the beginning, in the sessions, I always just focus on the positives. I say to the partner, I want you to give some feedback to your colleague, and I want you to tell them what was good about that story. And not what was bad about it and what they can prove. I don't do that. I just say what's good, find the good things. And they build confidence. But towards the end of the session, then they're getting feedback on what they can improve, and they're standing in front of the whole group and telling stories. And so that's how I tend to build people up in a workshop.
Wow, that's really building up this comfort zone. This is good. Thank you.
Yeah,
I will try to use some elements of those, because I actually already begin with the deep listening rule and stuff that Karen Dietz shared with me. Like you need to listen as a person that's just sitting around the fire and waiting for a good story to come without any judgments or anticipations. And I will add your approach. This is really meaningful. Thank you.
Yeah, your pleasure.